All right, from the studios in Fairfax City, we are very grateful that Tristan Eckerson accepted the invitation to our show. Tristan, welcome to my Humble Podcast.
Thank you.
No problem. Tristan, let's go back to the beginning of your life. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you perhaps began taking guitar lesson, piano lesson, that sort of thing?
Well, I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and
Yeah.
I was not born into a musical or artistic family, really. It's just me. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that happened, but yeah. And when I was 6, I started taking classical piano lessons and took them basically through elementary school. And then I decided that I didn't want to play piano anymore at that time, and I ended up playing trombone for a while, and that was part of school. And then that just kind of, I don't even remember what happened with the trombone, but I kind of just found my way back to playing piano at the end of high school, and I just started playing more by ear and just sitting down and kind of working through the piano and learning to improvise, and so that's how that kind of developed. And then from then on I never really took lessons again. I just played and learned on my own.
I got you. I got you. What about high school? Were you in any pop band, rock band, band?
Well, in 8th grade I played in a punk rock band, and that was, not really sure how serious that was. I think we were just screwing around and trying to have fun. And then
Yeah.
that didn't, I think that only lasted a year or so. And then in high school, it was no really organized bands. It was just, getting together and playing for fun. And then in college, I moved to Charleston, South Carolina. And that's when I joined my first official band called Double Stack.
Yeah.
And that was, actually a group of much older guys, and I was, the youngin in that band, and it was more of like a jazz fusion band. And we just played all over Charleston, and then we played all over the South, and just started playing music festivals and stuff, and got pretty successful, and that was fun. And then I think at that time it was when I started also just playing piano gigs on my own, just playing solo piano. And I actually played in a few bluegrass bands in Charleston too, and then I moved back to Cincinnati to finish college, and I formed a band called Trifecta Funk with 2 of my friends, and that was kind of the same style of music, and we did largely the same thing, just gigging all over Cincinnati and touring a little bit. And that was kind of, we recorded a few demos and an EP, and I think that was the first time I'd been in a recording studio, legitimate recording studio. And then I decided to move to San Francisco, California, and I went to grad school there, but I also I made my own band there, and then I also joined a band called Taxes, and that was more just straight rock and roll, like pop rock kind of sound. And I was just the keyboardist in that band, but that was actually really fun. And that was kind of my first experiences being a sideman and just playing piano and not singing or writing or anything. And that band got pretty successful as well. We played we played South by Southwest, and we played Noise Pop in San Francisco, and that was fun. And actually I moved to Seattle in 2012, and that was the last band I ever played in. And ever since then, I've just been doing my own thing with producing music and playing piano on my own.
It's good for you. Oh, by the way, the internet is excellent now. So
Good. Yeah.
all right. So I'm happy to we do that. And I noticed in your background that you end up writing, recording, mixing, mastering, and of course all the cover design work as well. Where do you learn how to master, mix, and become proficient on that sort of thing? at graduate school?
Mainly when I went to grad school in San Francisco, and
Yep.
that was where I basically learned to do all that stuff, because before that I hadn't even really touched any type of recording software or anything like that, and I was really just playing live. And so I learned all the music production at the Academy of Art, and it was more like specifically geared towards writing music and Logic for visual media.
Yeah.
And so during the process of doing that, when I was learning all that stuff, I kind of realized like, oh, I can just produce my own music in this and release it. And so I kind of started gravitating more towards just making my own music in the studio than really going for trying to get jobs making music for film and stuff, because that's what I was basically doing. I was doing student films and some like smaller independent films, but I got more drawn towards just making my own music within Logic and just creating music digitally.
I was able to listen to all the music that at least I was able to find in Spotify and Bandcamp, actually. And the first record I found from you was Galactic 3-Day Pass that was released in October 2016. It's a very good album, actually. Very different from the latest one that I was able to find for you. Feel free to elaborate on the motivation to put together that album or so.
Well, it was kind of a one-off. It ended up being kind of a one-off album, and that whole sound and everything. I think I was listening to a lot of electronic music at the time, and started listening to Nils Frahm and started seeing what he was doing, and I was kind of like, oh, I could try to do that myself, and started listening to like Jean-Michel Jarre and some kind of more orchestral electronic stuff, and that was like my big idea with that album. And I set up a tour through Canada and through the US, and I performed that, and it kind of, the album didn't really get as much attention or as much press as I had hoped it would. And to be honest, through the process of doing that tour, I did the tour myself, and I was hauling a massive amount of gear around for every gig to set up to play that album live. But then some of the venues on that gig, or some of the venues on that tour, they were like, you can just play solo piano. And I had already written all the music for my album Tulso at that time, so I would just play that. And people really enjoyed that, and I started thinking to myself, like, well, it's a lot easier to just walk into a club and sit down at the grand piano than it is to haul around all this gear. So maybe I should just, people like it better anyway. So that's kind of what happened there.
Yeah, Tulso is another album from October 2016. That's I listened to that one. It's very good, actually. I like your music, man. As I mentioned to you before, Tristan, I don't play music. I don't know how to read music at all, but I just been around music all my life, so for listening to, I don't know, 22 hours a day at least, and going to a lot of concerts. So, but I appreciate good music, and you're very good and proficient in what you do. And the album I really like as well is Purple Decades Volume 1 that was released in December 2024. So it's like 6 months ago or so, 7 months. Feel free to elaborate on that particular album. It's an excellent album, man. So I hope that you have, and I'm quite sure you have received good press for that, because it's not me, the only person telling you that that's a great album, but it is, man. Feel free to how you put it together, and then how was the album, perceived and received, in different places in the world.
Well, that one particularly was really just a collection of singles that I'd been releasing with Purple Decades, and then I had so many singles that I just put it together to make it an album for the people on Bandcamp, because people on Bandcamp are kind of like, it's like its own ecosystem on Bandcamp, aside from the streaming platforms and everything. So I just wanted to make that an album so it's just easier to access. But really, those were just a collection of singles, and I did do 2 albums with a label called Beacon Sound that's out of Portland, and those are on his Bandcamp on Beacon Sound. But yeah, the whole idea with Purple Decades was really just to make ambient music, and to just, my whole goal there was just essentially not having a goal. It was because I'd been doing the piano for a while at that point, and there was, of course, like, you need to make money as an artist, and so a lot of the piano was like, okay, what do I need to do to actually make a living, and blah blah blah. So with Purple Decades, I was just thinking, I just want to make ambient music, and I don't have an agenda. I don't want to try to get on any playlists or even tour it or anything. I just want to make it and put it out there, and get, hope people will listen to it. And so that's what Purple Decades has been, and I've just kind of been going on with that project in that way.
Gotcha. It's a very, very good project. How, in general term, Tristan, how difficult is it to make a decent living as a musician or so, as an artist? Is it very difficult still?
I guess it would depend on who you talk to, but I think it's probably the most, classically very difficult, especially for the type of music that I kind of fell into, playing like contemporary classical music and jazz music and ambient music. It's, it is difficult. And I just kind of found various ways to do it, and, dealing with, because I'm kind of the generation where, like, people were buying CDs, and then everything went digital, and then streaming took over, and now everyone listens to Spotify, and but now people are also buying records again, and people are buying tapes, and so it's a really interesting time to really kind of navigate through all that stuff and all the new technology that's coming out, and just trying to, like, really stay in tune to what's going on so that I can make a living, because I know a lot of people my age that are just independent musicians are still kind of clinging on to only trying to sell physical product and everything. And it's just, you kind of got to dive down the streaming rabbit hole and just join that world, because that's really, for better or worse, I make the majority of my income off of just streaming platforms like Apple Music and Spotify and all that. That's how it's happening. So
yeah. I got it. Are you? Do you live in Colombia? Are you able to play some gigs there in Santa Marta or as well? Or
no, I mean, I don't think so. It's pretty wild culturally, so I don't know if I could. I don't know if my personal music style would be very much appreciated in this city. But I'm basically just living here, and then I have my studio here, and so I'm just doing the same thing I did always, just here, and
different town. Yeah. Man, you've been. I'm envious. You've been all over the world, man. I mean, South Carolina, of course, Spain, San Francisco, North Carolina, now Colombia, and man. Before I talk to you again in a couple of years from now, you will be maybe in Tokyo or something.
That would be great, actually. Yeah. That's the goal. Yeah.
If you, but no, with regard to income and try to make a living, I have interviewed a lot of people, and it's very difficult to make a living. But if that's something that you really want to do, you need to do it, right? So I'm a computer scientist. I'm an engineer. So it so happened that music is my passion, but I don't play any instrument. But music has, without being a musician, music has given me a lot of satisfaction in my life. So I cannot complain. So it's great. In the past, you were associated with the record label 1631 Recording, which a lot of great people have been there, like Nils and Dustin and I was referring to Nils Frahm and Dustin O'Halloran. It's a lot of great people there. Is it difficult to publish your music in that particular record label?
Well, I guess it depends. For me, it wasn't difficult. He actually approached me after I wrote Tulso, and then we just released Tulso, and he published it, and then I did a second album with him called Disarm, and that was the one where I had firmly decided just to play solo piano, and I toured through Europe with that album after he had released it. And then, so for me, it just kind of like happened naturally. He actually approached me, which I think honestly is the only time that's ever happened. Usually with record labels, I have to send out a massive slew of demo recordings and, somebody has interest, but most people generally don't. It's a hard game to play. It's hard to get people to even pay attention to you. But yeah, with 1631, he actually approached me and he had heard it online and said, "Oh, let's do some work together." And so from there, I think I was able to get a lot of luck with streaming and everything. And then I kind of got enough press and enough momentum to where some other labels were just more receptive.
I got it. I noticed also that you have toured through North America, and you mentioned Europe and composed music for commercials and short film, web series. Is it difficult to score music for a film? I suppose is complicated as well. It's harder to release your music on your own, or approach like a movie director, or a movie director approaching you, or in terms of publishing deals as well. Is it harder as well?
I don't know if it's harder, but it's definitely different, and it's hard. But I would say I don't know that it's not necessarily more difficult. It's just a whole different ecosystem, and obviously, when you're working on films, or any type of media, then you're dealing with people, like the director, and it's not what I'm saying is it's not yours anymore. It's kind of like you're doing something for someone and you're providing a service. So it's totally different than just, even if I'm working with a record label, they're not telling me like, this is what we want, you need to do this. I'm just making the music I want to make that I think, or that I like, or that I think fans will like. And then the record labels are saying, yeah, we'll try to make some money off that. But with anything media based, it's like, it really just depends on who you're working with and what they want. And it's more of like you're providing a service, and, based on who you're working with and how big of a name you are, really, it can be, I found it to be pretty frustrating, honestly, like with working for ads and for ad houses and stuff, because they want something very specific and then they don't want to pay you. And it just gets frustrating because you don't have any like leverage, because, you're not Hans Zimmer. So it's a really rough industry in that sense, unless you're really willing to, work your way up to the top and maybe go to LA and work through the studio system and be an intern and all that. It's just the films that I did that I thought were actually fun was just because it was somebody that I knew and that I liked and that we were friends. And then it was like, oh, I'm making a film and let's work together. But So in that sense, I think getting into that industry is really difficult, and it's just got to be something that you want to do 100%, and it's like that's your goal. And so for me, it really wasn't. It was more like I said, I just wanted to release music and just be able to have the freedom to do that. Um,
No.
so really, where I found more luck is just with the licensing on the back end, where it's I've already made the music and films or TV or whatever is coming in and saying, "Hey, we want to use your music," and just put it in, and that's I've had a lot more luck with that because it's kind of the best of both worlds. Really.
Absolutely. Good for you. Good for you. And yeah, I have interviewed the reason was like a question. I have interviewed a lot of people that are film composer, and they tell me that it's very difficult to make a living there because, like you mentioned, right? You do something, they don't like it, you need to go back again. Okay, we like that part, but we want a different ending and so on and so forth. So you go back and forth many, many times, and at the end of the day, at the end of the week, if you take into consideration how many hours you spend, you're making, I don't know, X number of dollars per hour. It's not very lucrative unless you have publishing deals, publishing, rights with that. That's another story because then it can be a lucrative, future streaming of income, if you will. And I noticed that your music, whether it's in television, film, have been streamed over 40 million times worldwide, if I remember correctly. That's not bad, man. Not
Yeah,
bad.
not bad.
Yeah, I hope you're getting paid okay.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's kind of with the streaming, it's
Yeah.
it's gotta be millions.
Mm.
If you're getting millions of streams, then you're making a decent living, and if it's anything
Yeah.
less than that, then it can be rough. So it's kind of
Well,
it ebbs and flows where it's you have periods where you're making a lot and periods where you're making less, and it all just evens out to being okay. But it's just like everything else in the music industry. It's not easy, and it's also constantly changing. With the streaming, especially all the guys who are running those companies, they're constantly changing things, and so the way it's happening and the way you make money off it is it's always moving around. You just got to stay on top of it.
gotcha. How you doing in Bandcamp? You doing okay?
Yeah, I mean, I used to do a lot better in Bandcamp because I was just putting a lot more on it because I was doing a lot more independently.
Yeah.
Well, like the albums I did with Beacon Sound for Purple Decades, he released them on Bandcamp and they did really well. And he did vinyl for the first record and it sold out, and so that album did really well on Bandcamp. And the second one he did a tape, and I believe he's almost sold out the tape, and so that album did really well on Bandcamp too. And the thing with my personal Bandcamp is that I just haven't been releasing stuff on it for a while because I've been mostly releasing stuff through record labels, so I'm not able to put it on my own Bandcamp then.
Oh, I see. It will go under the record label Bandcamp instead of yours.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Got it. Yeah. I got it. Good. Understand. In 2022, you contribute to a track to the what they call Piano Day compilation released by a record label, right? And with very very good names are being featured in that particular compilation of music. A question that open, I suppose, at least I'm hoping that open more door for you, right? Because you have very big names associated with that particular release. So
Yeah, it definitely helped, and the label that released that, Lighter, and I think they're out of Berlin.
Yeah.
That's Nils Fromm's manager who's running that label, I guess, with Nils Frahm. And yeah, I had sent them a album, actually, my album Going Home, which was just piano, but it was like 100% improvised. I sent them that and they liked it, but they didn't have time on their schedule and all that at the time to release it. And but then they invited me to do that compilation as a result of that. And yeah, I have the record up here, and it's definitely felt like an accomplishment because some of the artists who I was, a big fan of myself were on that album. So
Yeah.
it felt good to be part of it, and it was a fun experience.
Yeah, good for you. Very happy for you. And also, I was listening to at least the latest track that I was able to find. The first one was Lisboa, and the other thing is called What I Met For. Both are excellent. And what memory do you have that, and what was the motivation of put it? You're always writing stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
like on a monthly basis, you try to do one or every 2 weeks, and then you group 5, 10 new album, 10 another album. Good for you, man. Yeah. Do you feel inspired every morning? I mean, you wake up with a lot of energy and go to the piano or the keyboard and start compiling, or the other way around. Sometimes you're drinking a beer, or you go to the supermarket, you go in laundry, and you hear a noise, a bear, oh, something there, and then you write it down, and then in the evening you.
Sometimes that happens. Usually it's kind of funny because usually when I'm in bed at night and I'm just about to fall asleep, I get some great idea. And
Yeah.
I used to jump out of bed and turn on the computer and write it all down. But these days I don't do that as much. But to be perfectly honest, usually I just go in and work, and it's not necessarily that I wake up and I'm inspired to do something. It's just a habit, and then I just go in and get it done. And sometimes when I sit down, something awesome happens right off the bat, and it's great, and then I get inspired and I develop into something, and it's easy and enjoyable. And other days it's just kind of like, oh, I'm struggling with something, and maybe it's not feeling as inspirational, but my motto is essentially just getting in and working. And as long as I'm working on music, then something good is going to happen. And that's, it's my job. So it's the only thing I have to do. Just get in and try to make some music.
How's your Spanish, by the way? How's the Spanish coming along?
It's, okay. I would say, my wife says it's like 95% fluent. So
that's pretty good, man.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I can definitely speak Spanish and have conversations and make my way through the world, but it's still not 100% comfortable. It's just, I'm getting there.
All right, good for you, man. Good for you. Yeah, and I have great memory from Colombia as well. So I don't have that many questions left, but in general, what has been the greatest challenge or frustration, if you will, of your musical career so far? There gotta be a couple of turning point in your life, man. I wish if I were to die tonight, I played the best I could. The venue was great. It was well received. Versus, man, you close your eyes and you say, man, what I'm doing here? I want to go home. I want to go back to the hotel or go to bed or drive, whatever. What in general terms, if you can mention a couple instances where things work out great and things didn't work out at all.
Well, I do remember when I was doing that big tour through Europe, I kind of just did it myself, and I booked everything myself, and it was completely independent, and it was good, and it really went well, but it was also really hard. And there were a few moments when I was like walking over a bridge in Lisbon with my backpack on and was lost, and I was just kind of like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? This is ridiculous. Here by myself. And I didn't really make much money on that tour because I was, investing so much into it and the press and everything. And that was definitely a time where I was kind of like, what's going on? But then again, I would do it again also because it was, it was fun and it was a good experience. So But
Yeah.
yeah, since then, that was the last time I did do a tour. So since then, I've just been working in the studio, and it's pretty smooth at this point. So
Good for you, man. Good for you. Yeah, as a musician, how you define success, right? So I don't know, number of sales, number of compilation. When do you, yeah, as you are like, I don't know, 30s, mid 30 or something, you look back in your life, have you happy with I mean, of course, it's your life, right? It's just your job, right? And so
yeah.
nobody forced you to play piano, play to the keyboard, or waking up in the morning or anything. Are you happy, with your career, what you have done? I don't know how you measure success in number of streams, number of record sale. How do you measure that?
Well, that I don't really know, honestly. I mean, I think my idea of success in life is just if you're happy and you're healthy, then you're successful. And so
Sure.
I'm
Sure.
happy and healthy now. So I feel pretty successful and I'm able to do music every day. I don't have to do anything else. So, I mean, of course, I'd like to do more, but it's not really in terms of money or anything. It's more just in terms of like, would like to do some more substantial pieces of music, like with ensembles and orchestras, and do something that's more just more substantial than what I'm doing now. And I kind of have that in the back of my head that I want to do that, but I'm always pushing it off. So that's really, it's not necessarily about success or numbers or anything. It's just about like making more substantial art, more something that could be looked back on afterwards and been like, wow, that's a really substantial piece of art, because these days, especially, so easy to get, everyone's doing things that are short, and everything's short, and TikTok short, and there's Instagram stories are short, and everything's very short. So I'd like to leave something like more substantial in the vein of like a symphony or concerto or something that's just more of like a piece of work. But yeah, other than that, that's, so I guess that's kind of looking at success. It's more of just like, what's the quality of work that you're putting out there?
That's a good definition. Actually, now that I think about it, it's a very good definition. And yeah, but your music is great. So from my point of view, not being a musician or not being a professional critic, I really like your stuff. And some music for me, as a music connoisseur or aficionado, some music I like, some of music I like, others they're not appealing for me, and nothing to do with the artist. It so happened that my tastes go into that particular direction. And what are you working nowadays, man?
I've kind of got this four-pronged attack going on where I've got these four different projects. I'm just trying to do them all simultaneously. So with the piano right now, I'm just doing more piano, and I just finished a track where this Brazilian painter gave me a painting and said, like, can you make a song to this? And I did, and then we're releasing it, and that's going to be out in August.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I'm still working on more Purple Decades. I'm working on another album for that. And then I also started a project just doing lo-fi hip hop. And that was, to be honest, that was initially kind of geared towards like making money and just getting on playlists on Spotify, whatnot, and making some extra money. But then I actually really started to enjoy doing it and doing the production, and it was just something different. And I've been collaborating with some saxophone players, clarinet players, and trumpet players and whatnot. So And actually, I've put out a few singles, and they've gotten released by record labels that are really good, substantial record labels, and so it's going really well. So I've kind of been going more in that direction of just trying to make that because, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of my background with playing live was with jazz, and obviously classical isn't jazz and doesn't have much jazz in it. So sometimes I miss that kind of more of the jazz and the soul and the funk vibe of other music. And with lo-fi hip hop, with where it's at now, that's basically all it is. It's very much jazz and funk and soul. So it kind of fits right into my wheelhouse. And so I've been working on that a lot as well. And yeah, that's about it. So I've just been kind of trying with these various different projects to just keep making music every day.
So hopefully everything to be released toward the end of the year. You mentioned August, and
Yeah.
all right, good for you. Feel free to elaborate where viewer, listener of this podcast can buy your music. Feel free to mention your website or the Bandcamp as well. So
Well, TristanEckerson.com is my website, and
yeah,
essentially everything runs through that. So it's got all the links and everything. And but of
yeah,
course, like you mentioned, I'm on Bandcamp and all the streaming networks and everything. So
yeah.
that's
All
the best place
right,
to find it. And with Purple Decades, that's the Ambient project.
I got it. I will put links to both to the Bandcamp and to the website as well, for hopefully people can get a hold of you and buy the music directly, and so you can make a little bit of money to supplement your life there in Colombia. You need to, maybe down the road you will do something with merengue and salsa, or I don't know if you know. You must learn how to now. Your Colombian wife, you're quite sure you know how to do that.
Yeah.
Hey, Tristan, it was very nice talking to you, man. Good luck to you, and you're a great person, a great musician, and I wish you good luck in everything you do, man. You're a great guy, man.
Thank you.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it.
Thank you. Take it easy, man.
All right.